is brought to you by
Organissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.organissima.com. Organissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty.
You are listening to Let's Talk About It with your show host, the celebrity Dr. Cheryl Bryant Bruce. Greetings, everybody. It's me, you know me, Dr. Cheryl Bryant Bruce, MD, the Celebrity Doc, and I am here with my show co-host, Hisham Elamanti, Hurricane H, and we are Chatters That Matter. Let's talk about it. This is our runaway talk show network, EMBC TV, and we are bringing to you shows that educate, inform, and entertain you. Today's show is featuring none other than one of my high school besties, Commander Maureen Alexander, aka Alex Wright. And she is coming to us today talking about the 5 steps to inner calm. Alex is a naval commander who taught anger management courses, and she has handled just a truckload of military monies. So I'm going to bring Alex in and let her tell you a little bit more about her very interesting background, and then she's going to tell us all how to stay calm. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. You didn't leave out a whole lot, so I will say that I was a commander. I'm a retired commander now. I did 24 years in the military, and not only did I didn't really do anger management in the military. I did drug and alcohol abuse prevention, and I turned that when I got out of the military into anger management that I then taught in the prisons, and did that for quite a while.
And there's a lot of anger in the prisons, no doubt.
Yes, there is.
I think there's anger everywhere.
Right? Nowadays there really is.
It's unbelievable. I'm sorry, Commander, that we had a discussion earlier, and you failed to tell me that part, so I'll salute you for, and I didn't know, Doctor, you too.
For your service.
Thank you.
So let's see. So I taught in the prisons, but I also taught in the community where people were sent by the court system, where they had to go to so many classes. And what was really kind of fun was I had people who came into the class who didn't want to be there, and then realized, oh, this is not just don't be angry and that I'm a bad person. This is a little bit more about who I am. And I had people who kept coming even though they had already fulfilled all the requirements of their court order. They kept on coming to class, which was very satisfying for me.
Their perception was that they were a bad person. So it wasn't about their anger. It was about an inner perception that they themselves were actually a bad person. So it wasn't bad behavior. It's I am a bad person.
Yes.
And I think we see that a lot, especially, I've given parenting classes, and that's one of the things that we talk to parents about, because with children, when we're disciplining our children, if we are not careful about the things that we say to them, and even if we are sometimes careful about the things that we say, but definitely if we're not careful about the things that we say to them, they don't hear your behavior is bad. They hear you yourself are a bad person. So we have to be really very, very careful how we deal with people, and even not just children. If you are in a position of authority and you have people who you're supervising, if you're having to discipline someone that you're supervising, or even if you're giving constructive criticism to somebody that you're not supervising, depending on how you say it, they don't hear your action is bad, or the choice you made is bad. They hear you are a bad person. So what do you do to get around that?
Well, I treated everybody with respect and encouraged them to respect themselves. And probably one of the first things that I would talk about in class is I had people dropping in every time. I'd have like a new student every day, every week that I would have my class. And so I started doing the 5 steps at the beginning of every class, and then we would talk about whatever the topic of the class was, because the topics of the class, anger is not just one thing. I mean, obviously anger is one emotion, but the things that go into the anger are more than the one emotion. You have to, if you're a high stress person, you're going to get angry a lot more often. Right. Domestic violence, a lot of people think is anger management, and it's entirely different. It's a matter of control. And so we talk about that.
Yes.
When we ruminate and go over things over and over again, we tend to build up more than is really there and get angrier than really the situation needs to be. If we don't know how to solve our problems, we get angry because we get frustrated, and then we have a tendency to take it out on other people. Oftentimes, we don't know that we are responsible for things in our life, and then it seems like everybody else is doing stuff to us, and we get angry at that and angry at everybody around us. We'd have low self-esteem. And then we think that everybody's looking at us and thinking bad about us. And so we get angry just to be defensive, to get off our backs. And then if we don't communicate correctly, like you were talking about with the parenting, you don't use I statements and things like that, where you talk for yourself and you talk about people around you and you. People get defensive, and then they get angry, and you're like, oh my gosh, everybody's angry. I've got to get angry too. So it's a whole bunch of stuff.
Within all of that, and I mean, it's lots of different ice cream flavors.
Yes.
Within all of that, isn't the underlying thread kind of what you said with the abuse? Isn't it kind of about control? Isn't anger a loss of control?
That's more domestic violence. The anger itself is coming from more frustration and the self-talk that's happening as a result of the frustration that turns into the anger and it creates in our body.
But isn't frustration even about a lack of control? We get frustrated with things that we can't make go the way that we want, that we can't control. I think, we all kind of have a need for an underlying control of our environment. And as much as we try to say that we're not trying to be controlling, we really want to be in control of everything if we can.
Well,
and so we become frustrated when we're not. So isn't it all kind of isn't there an undercurrent of control in all of it?
There is definitely control. There are definitely control issues involved, especially if we're talking about between two people, who's in charge and who's in charge of me. And definitely we want our own self-regulation. Although I would say that many of the people that first come into the class say, I can't help it, and just get angry. And so I have to help them to understand that there is a moment where they can decide. But usually they just start seeing red and have a hard time understanding all of this stuff. So we have to break it down.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. So in that case, it becomes an issue of self-control.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, because
Okay.
the first thing that you have to do if you're going to control your anger is to be able to recognize, and that is the first step, recognize that you're angry. So
Right.
you do a body scan, and not everybody gets angry the same way. Some people, they do all that.
Mhm.
Other
Mhm.
people, you can just look at them and, like steam, if you could see it, would be coming out of their head, and they'd
Right.
be just seething. But, you can't see that. So, you just kind of look and maybe see a steel look in their eye and realize that they're angry. And then, everything in between. So you need to become aware. The Mayo Clinic came up with 3 steps to anger management. And then
Mhm.
I created a step before actually the awareness, but you have to start with the first 3, and then you can add mine
Right.
on. But the first step that the Mayo Clinic says is to recognize your symptoms of anger. You can feel it in your hands. Maybe you can feel it on the
Mhm.
back of your neck. And really what's happening, it's your brain taking from your thought patterns. And that's where we get step 0.5, as I call it. But your brain, the primitive part of your brain, recognizes the thoughts that are happening in your thinking brain and responds. And you go into flight, fright, or freeze, where you are getting ready to fight that saber-toothed tiger or whatever, so that you can get out of there. But maybe you're on an elevator, and it's probably not appropriate for you to go kill the saber-toothed tiger right there. But that's what your brain is telling your body to do, and it's not even involving your thinking part. And that's why people think that it's happening, because it has nothing to do with them. The problem with that, though, is that it's really the thought pattern that happens before that then gives the message to that primitive brain to then respond that way. If they can control the thought pattern before, they can prevent the body to start reacting like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So again, back to the 3 things that the Mayo Clinic says: you recognize your symptoms, and then you take step 2 is to take steps to calm down. So
Right.
one of the fastest things that you can do is deep breathing. Just start breathing and do a breathing pattern. And what the deep breathing will do for you, especially if you're like doing square breathing or some kind of pattern, it's going to bring you out of all that thought pattern that's got you angry in the first place, and bring you right to wherever it is that you are right now. Because when you're breathing, that's what's happening right now at this minute, and it makes you present. You tend to, when you're angry, go up off in your head about what you think the other person is thinking, or what you think the other person said, or what you think they meant, and then you get angry. And then
Now, can you define for us what square breathing is?
Sure. That's one of my favorite things to do. So square breathing is where you breathe in 4 steps, so that 4 sides make a square. And so the first step is but you have to be comfortable with not breathing also. So the first step is to breathe in, and you count slowly to 4 as you breathe in. Then you hold your breath, and you count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you let your breath out slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you sit there without any air and count slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, before you start over again. And breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Let it out. 2, 3, 4. No breath. 2, 3, 4. And repeat as often as you need it to do. If
And that
part.
actually makes you feel really, really good. I mean, I saw Hurricane was doing it along with you, and I certainly was. And it's like, I feel really relaxed now.
Yeah, I actually told it to a guy that I just met on the sidewalk, and I was explaining it to him. He lived near where I used to work, and he ran me down one day and he said, "Oh my gosh, I have to tell you, I have to go get dialysis all the time, and they're always telling me to calm down." He said, "I used your square breathing," and they were like amazed that I was able to calm myself down.
Uh-huh.
It's
it actually was very, very relaxing. And I can see where that would work very well with children and young people, because it's a very kinetic thing to do. And it actually, it's kind of like training a dog. You train the dog away from the bad behavior because they're actively doing something else, so they can't get into that bad behavior loop. So I can see where that would be very, very useful with anger management.
And then one of the other things that we also tell them, though, because especially with our people who are in relationships, it may be that you need to get yourself away from the situation. We also make sure, though, that it's safe for them to do that. We don't want them maybe to jump in a car while they're angry and drive away, but to try to remove yourself from the immediate situation so that you can then take care of yourself and do what you need to do. We've also encouraged people to have like a what we call a go bag, where there are things in the go bag that you enjoy, and we don't recommend any kind of mind altering drugs or anything like that, because that's not coping. that's
no Timothy Leary activity, huh?
Yeah, no, but maybe you'd have some tea, or just a soft pillow, or some music, or whatever, and take the time to just take care of yourself and try not to think about what it was. And then maybe, once you calm down, you can think about what's the appropriate way to deal with the situation. That's step number 3, is to come up with a way that you can deal appropriately with the situation, because you tend to jump to conclusions when you're angry. And so you want to make sure that you get back. And I guess that's one of the other things that we tell them to try to do, is if you're leaving, try to tell the person that you intend to come back, because they're probably talking about something they want to, and you're leaving. Promise them that you'll come back to this situation, but you need to take care of yourself, and that it's very important for you. You want to talk about this thing, but let me take care of myself for a moment. So then you come back and you.
Now, what do you do? How would you recommend they respond in the event that they go through that whole process and the person with whom they're having the interaction won't allow them to remove themselves?
If the person won't allow them to remove themselves, ask them if they can just go to the other side of the room or something like that. One of the things that I also recommended, though, was when they went to the class, I said, when you go home tonight, make sure you talk to your significant other and tell them, look, I'm working on my anger. Well, that in itself usually will make the other person very excited and happy. But tell them one of the things that they went over was that they may have to move away from what's making, what's helping them to be angry, and make a commitment that I will want to take care of it, and but you're going to have to let me go, and make an agreement as to where is a safe place for them to go where the other person won't follow them, and to make that agreement ahead of time.
And I like that. I like the part of making it ahead of time, because you're making it at a time when emotions are not elevated, and you can come up with a calm plan on which you both can agree. And I actually see that work very well with children with autism, who, we recommend that parents have a contract. You and I talked about a contract just about a week ago, have a written contract with our kids with autism. And one of the things that I found really, really interesting in working with them is that they would make the contract. And I mean, if a child with autism makes a contract, they make a contract, they mean it. But what I thought was really interesting was that they could process this very fully, and that a lot of them chose as a safe place a dark closet with a pillow where they could kind of sequester and just make themselves, very small and calm themselves. And I thought that was interesting that they were able to process that. And I think that it is very effective. I like your idea of, make your go bag and take your pillow. There's something about a pillow that is very comforting to most people.
Yeah. So then they want to make a plan for when they're going to discuss whatever this topic was. And they need to make a time that's agreeable to both people. I said, just because you've come to the idea that, okay, I think I know how I feel and how I want to talk about it, doesn't mean the other person is ready. They, were probably very excited too, and they might not have taken care of themselves. And so they're going to need a little more time before they can talk about it. Mm-hmm. So then the third step is to deal appropriately with the situation. And I tell them that you always have three options, that you can go back and have a discussion. You can not go back and have a discussion, because you may decide that person is toxic and I need to not have anything to do with them. Hopefully you're not, permanently attached to them some kind of way. Mm-hmm. And then my favorite is to learn from it. Mm. And so what I recommended, my extra step there, is to do a reflection on what it was that made you angry. I also recommend that people take an anger journal, and the strength and power of the journal, it doesn't matter how you do it, just a piece of paper, whatever, write it down, put it on the computer, write it down. I tend to like using actually your hand, because you'll see the strength of your writing, and you'll see your writing change as you get less angry while you're writing. Right. So I really I recommend paper and analog version, but some people are digital, so let them go. Do what they need to do.
I like the idea of the analog version, because what you said there was important. The strength of your writing, and if you're very angry, you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on that pen or pencil. The writing is probably going to be much less tidy. The strokes are probably going to be much heavier. And as you're going through the process and you're relaxing and your arm starts to relax and all, you'll be able to look at that paper and see the change in the writing. If you're, clicking on the keys, you can be banging and thumping on the keys, but what shows up on that paper isn't going to tell you whether or not you were banging and thumping on the keys. And I think the beauty of that whole writing process is that if you keep it in a book or a journal, you are able to go back over time and see your progress and see your thought patterns changing, and see your management patterns changing, because conceivably over time, as you become better adept at managing your anger, the periods when that writing is heavy and scrawling are going to become shorter, because you're going to be able to manage the anger much more effectively, much more quickly. And there is gratification in seeing that progress that you made, that computer screen is not going to show you. I mean, it will show you in the words maybe, but it's not going to show you the physicality of that. And so I think there is some beauty in that written exercise that you're proposing.
Yes. And additionally, the other thing that I asked for them to do is to look back after they've done it for a while, and look and see if there are patterns in how they angry. I find that this one person that they tend to get angry with, or a situation where they haven't prepared. is how they find themselves angry. And so they can find solutions to preventing the problem in the first place. So if it's a person that you can avoid, you just decide that you're not going to be around that person as much as you can. And if you're with that person, maybe you bring somebody else with you to help, maybe make it not be so directed at you the way that the situation goes. But you want to look at these patterns. If it's preparation, maybe you will lay your clothes out in the morning so you don't have to figure out what you're wearing and find yourself late for work yet again and mad at the traffic because, you didn't have enough time to do that. There are many, just different patterns that you find, different things over and over that tend to happen that you can look and see once you've done your journal.
Now, you have a lot of people who they've fallen into bad behavior patterns, toxic behavior patterns that are negatively impacting them. And of course, with every action, there's a reaction. And so your bad behavior results in a consequence that you may not like. How do you manage the person who is not able to see that all of these outer consequences are actually a result of their own behaviors, but instead direct more toxic behaviors out at other people, lashing out at other people? How do you reel that person in and get them to accept responsibility for their own behaviors and to accept responsibility for the consequences that they're experiencing? What do you say to them to get them to see the part that they're playing in all of that?
Well, I guess it's different for the different person. I go back to, and I've heard this a few times, hurt people.
Yes.
And so I try to help the person to understand that they're probably hurt in some kind of way. And I'm not qualified to, do a dig around and find out what happened in their past and all that stuff. I cannot go there, but I can recommend that they maybe, go see a therapist and find out some more information if I cannot, reach what they're doing. I have one of my classes is about taking responsibility, and we talk about what responsibility looks like. And that's a whole nother class.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of exercises in that class for them to take responsibility. I show them a taking responsibility framework that they use to recognize what sort of things they need to do to take responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And then a lot of times when people are angry, they do or say things, I call it punching buttons, to punch somebody else's button to trigger their anger because they're angry and they want the other person to be angry too. And what I've observed is that people who punch anger buttons tend to have the same pattern of punching, and they know how to look for other people's anger buttons in a certain way. And so it doesn't matter who they're interacting with, they'll still punch those same anger buttons. What would you say to that person to get them to recognize the anger buttons that they're punching, their patterns of behavior that create anger in other people, to which they may react because they perceive the other person as being unreasonable when it is really them that's punching the other person's anger buttons?
Yeah, well, I would say two things. In the very first class, one of the things we talk about is the 5 steps and all that fun stuff. But we also talk about the responsibility of being respectful to yourself and being respectful to the other person. And we go into more in the communication class how to talk to another person. And it's very hard to push a button if you say I and talk about yourself.
Right.
And so you have to recognize who you are and who you are not, that you are not the other person. And if you talk about yourself, you tend not to make the other person angry if you talk about what's going on for yourself, because you own what you do yourself. You tend to, and then you try to ask them to do the same. Now, you know, they didn't go to the class, maybe they're not going to do it, but a lot of times, you know, like, I'm really excited about organization. I'm always trying to get a little more organized. And one of the things that the organizers say is, you know, they have customers and the customers say, I want you to organize my husband. I want you to organize my kids. And the organizer says, look, you're the one who called me and we're going to organize, and they're going to see the change in you. And they're probably going to ask you, what's different about you? I've noticed that you are more organized now. It's the same thing with the anger. They will notice you used to fly off the top, but you know, just if you just winked at you wrong. And now
Right.
you're taking a moment, you know, I see that you're kind of calm. And if you do get angry, you go to your happy place. You seem to be handling it. I think I would like to know, wow, what did you do? How did you learn that?
Mm-hmm. Right. And I actually, when I'm working with clients, I also counsel them that if they make a change in their environment, their entire environment will change with them. Now, sometimes it isn't in the way that they want. And I counsel them to be cognizant of, that there is a possibility that it won't go the way that they want, but that whichever way it goes, it could still be a healthy choice for them. If they're making a healthy choice for them, managing their anger, managing their food intake, whatever it is they're managing for the betterment of their health, that change is a positive effect for them. And if the environment, because sometimes other people in your environment, they thrive on the toxicity. And if you change that environment to decrease that toxicity, sometimes that other person chooses to leave because they want the toxicity. They don't want your calm. They don't want your happiness. They need that toxicity because they've got their own issues to work with. So I do counsel my clients that sometimes those changes, some changes are for good. And even though they may not be the outcome that you initially were going for, they can still be a good outcome for you if you've done what's best for your own health, be it your physical health or your mental health or your social health, whatever that health may be. You have to keep in mind what your goal is. And if the changes in your environment are not exactly what you would have liked to have been, you have to be able to step back and say, but did I achieve the goal I was going for that is actually going to better my health? So, that's important too. But they do, it is important that they understand that if they do make a change, that change is very likely to impact the entire circumstance around them.
That is very true. One of the things that I do to help with that, though, is, and I'd like both of you to try this too. Mm-hmm. I want you to cross your arms, and get comfortable. Okay, you doing it too, Hurricane?
Oh, he's always crossed and comfortable.
This is just me.
That's his stance. Chill.
Okay, so now what I want you to do is switch it up. Do it the other way.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
how does
annoying.
that feel? It feels odd, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it's
It's uncomfortable.
Well, it's not fair for me because I'm actually ambidextrous, so it feels the same. But yes, for most people, yes, that does feel odd.
It
yeah,
feels
no,
odd, but it
eh,
doesn't hurt. And that's what change is like.
Hmm.
It feels odd until you do it a lot. And then, it's like I've done it so many times in the class that it doesn't really feel any different to me either. But
Hmm.
that is what change is about. It's
Yes.
uncomfortable. And so we tend to revert back to what's comfortable. And you need to just keep doing it until it becomes comfortable.
so I did want to just interject with one thing. The role of pride and ego. I think that's a huge piece because
Mm.
I think the problem that and you talked about awareness and try to identify the triggers, and but I think the biggest that I think that I see all the time is people are not willing to walk away from situations. They just kind of like, well, I am right. It's always about me. And you said the me concept, and their ego is just so high that they're not willing to take that high road and just move away. And then you have the other one. Even if you do that, the other one is like, where you going? Come back here. We're not done here. And then that keeps
Yes.
escalating. And that's, I think, a problem because, to be honest with you, discipline is a big deal, and that's unfortunately not something that people usually have when it comes to their pride. It's just that you talk to me the wrong way, like, what are you looking at? What's up? And that's just, you see this all the time for nothing. You see something escalating from 0 to like 200 miles an hour in 2 seconds, and someone is like already like all over the place, like you said, fuming, smoke coming out. It's dangerous.
And
But
you really see it nowadays, with the younger group. They're like, well, he dissed me. He dissed me. Everybody dissed me.
high school is crazy.
I had a lot of people like that in my class. And what I talked about before, let's see, I would like to review my steps. Okay, so the first step was to become aware of your symptoms of anger. Now, let's go back into the 0.5 that I added. Your steps to anger is how your body responds, but why is your body responding? Your body is responding because you have a thought pattern. Now, when we talked about that prideful talk and I'm right and all that, that's usually very low self-esteem, speaking really large so you don't notice the very low self-esteem. And so you need to identify what the self-talk is. The self-talk may be, they're going to disrespect me. I've been disrespected. I don't want to be disrespected anymore. They need to understand what thought patterns they have that buy into them getting so angry. So I tell them, in addition to finding out how your body reacts, try to figure out what your thought patterns are that are telling you to be angry in the first place, that says that you don't want anybody to disrespect you. I mean, you have to look around and take in what people are saying to figure out that they're disrespecting you. And one of the things I tried, I'm sorry, I'm shaking everything. One of the things I tried to tell my children was, when you go out into the world and you're all worried about what everybody else is thinking, well, that's exactly what they're thinking. Oh my gosh, how is everybody going to see me? What are they going to think about me? They're not thinking about you whatsoever. They're so busy thinking about themselves. And so the self-talk that you develop is because maybe in the past a bunch of people did a bunch of stuff now to you, but what's happening to you right now? What is really going on? You carry that chip on your shoulder that creates all this anger for you, and other people respond to that chip on your shoulder. You need to learn how to take that chip off.
Or you're carrying that chip around and you're bringing in all of this negative energy that people are putting out there that isn't really there, because if you ask the people in the room, they didn't even notice you were in the room. But you created all of these backstories that this person was thinking this and that person dissed me because they looked at me crazy, and the person that looked at you crazy actually never saw you because they were looking at a person on the other side of the room behind you. But in your head, you've created this whole dialogue about what this other person is doing to you because of all of those big old chips that you're carrying around on your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
What you ladies are describing right now is similar to like when you hear bullying. I mean, it's like bullying 101. I mean, people are just feeling something and they're reacting, and that's how they compensate, and then they go after everybody because that's how they show that they got it, and therefore they just go crazy about it, and then they affect everybody. And then I think on the flip side, the other folks are completely avoiding these folks, and that keeps the trigger going because like why am I always like, you know, in the same position where you actually alienate everybody because your behavior is not helping and you're escalating all the time, and people are not going to be around you because they just don't want to deal with that. And that's a big problem. But so Alex, I have one question about, like every other problem that people have, right? You know, how do you, I mean, like if I had the problem, right? Typically, I am not recognizing the problem, or I'm probably in denial, and I'm not going to seek, you know, help because that's difficult for someone to. It's like having alcohol or any other drug addiction. You know, I'm not going to go seek the help. So it is. How do we help people? I mean, identify that and maybe guide them to like go. Hey, seek the help. I mean, people sometimes they don't even want to go there because the minute they start talking, like, what are you talking about? I don't have any anger management. They get excited, you know, and where do you go?
Angry.
They get exactly.
Well, I would tell you that having taught an anger management class, that was the big question. I have to tell you, I think there were probably maybe 2 people that actually decided to take the class just on their own, actually with a lot of encouragement from their significant other. But most everybody that was in my class, not counting the ones in prison, they just had to go to the class. But the ones that I did in the community, they were there because they had gotten in trouble with the law, and the law said, you've got to go to anger management classes if you want to, you know, not go to jail. So they did. They were really encouraged to come.
So how do we reach the person who has not been ordered to go to anger management before they get into trouble? How do we get that person to start on this journey?
Well, best I could tell you is you have to use your ability to negotiate and get that horse to the water. Now, what are they going to drink? I don't know. You got to make it worth their while.
Yes. Are they going to drink or are they going to poop in the water? You know.
Well, I think the fear factor does apply because, to your point, when you know that this is not going to wind up well, I'm going to jail. You know, this is going to be bad. Divorce. You know, maybe my kids are taken away. All those things. If someone is aware that this is the outcome that's going to happen if you keep this particular behavior, you know, people are not going to stand you, and eventually they're just going to walk away from you, or they're going to push you out, and or you're going to wind up again. Either sometimes that's the other. You get anger, or that, God forbid, you know, you get into a fight.
Again, that's the biggest consequence. I mean, you think about these people who are in gangs, and you know they keep escalating this stuff, and then someone ends up dead.
Well, you can be like, you know, in the street screaming, and someone you don't know, he's got a gun, she's got a gun, they pull a gun on you. It happened. It's not something that we have not heard of. You know, most recently, people like somebody walked by somebody's house and they escalated, and the guy shot the guy, and that was dead. It is right. It is so you have to be aware that, you know, you gotta. But again, to your point, somebody that has this, they are not aware that they have it. They just basically, I don't have an anger management. What are you talking about? I'm good.
Right.
You know, this is just me, you know, getting excited, me talking, you know, but there's a difference between me talking without anger, and there's a big, you know, when I'm really, like you point earlier, smoking, and, you know, everything is like my bloodstream veins are like popping out. That's a problem. So I wanted just to ask one question, and I love, by the way, that whole thing about writing earlier, because that is distracting. I think it just takes you away as you write stuff. You know, you just mellow down, and it gives you, and you sit down. So that's going to help. Sitting down is always good. But like, you know, I know, for example, we make a joke in the fitness world. Hey, listen, go grab a bag or something and stop punching and kicking the bag, get it all out. You know,
Those drops.
I'm sorry.
I said, go bust rocks.
Yeah, exactly. Something, just do something and get it out of your system. Is that even a practice, actually? And we say it in general, but Alex, in your experience, is that something that is recommended?
What do you mean?
Like if someone, join a gym, get into martial arts, get into something where you can learn discipline, also get your anger out.
Channel that energy.
Yes.
Yeah, that's also another way to do it. One of the things that we talk about in anger management is it's not just the anger. You need to have all kinds of tools in your pocket. If you have, let's see, what's the one that I like to use? If the only tool you have is a hammer, which we'll call anger, then you treat everything like a nail. So here you have a board that needs to be sawed. You're going to hammer it to death with a nail, hoping that it's going to break. You have a screw that you want to put in. You're going to hammer the screw in because the only tool you have is a hammer. It's not going to be appropriate for all things. You need to have a lot of different skills. Some people just get angry because, hey, it works, and, the emotion anger in and of itself is not a bad thing. I mean, the world needs to get angry about some things, right? There are horrible things that happen and we need to be angry to stop it. We can't just be quiet and just let it happen. We have to get angry and do something about it. But we need to recognize when it's appropriate to do that and when it's not appropriate to do that. When your spouse does something you don't like and you blast them, that's not necessarily building up your relationship. If your spouse does something you don't like, you use some I statements and tell them how that makes you feel and what can we do about this in the future so I don't have to feel this way anymore. And then that becomes a discussion rather than you did, and it's a big fight and nothing ever comes of it.
Oh, we statements. I mean, and the reason I asked that, and it's just kind of a novel thought that popped up because I know that I've preached the I statements in the past too, but the reason I asked about we statements is because in a case with anger, and again, there's that control thing. My concern being that the weaker party or the non-angry party, and especially in the case of an abused spouse, the abused party, by making the I statements and taking it to the I statements, the other person could see that as accepting responsibility for everything that went on and could see it as a position of weakness. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but when I'm talking about the I statements, what I mean is how you feel. You talk about how you feel and how different things happening made you feel. Those are the I statements.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Taking responsibility for their feelings.
Right. But in the case of abusive spouses, say, for example, a lot of times that is actually flipped against you and it becomes, see what I'm saying? It's always all about you.
I tend not to talk with the victim. With the victim, the major thing that they need to think about is their safety. It really doesn't matter how you talk to that raging person. All the I statements in the world are not going to slow that person down. You need to just think about your safety and not try to model good behavior for that person. That person needs more than that. That is not, they need to be safe. They need to have a room where they can be safe.
Yes.
They need to get out of the house, possibly.
Yes.
There are many different, that's a whole nother ball of wax. Okay. Yeah, I usually have the abusers in my class, but I didn't do anything. I have that person.
Right. And that is a tough job, getting them to take responsibility for it. But yes, you did. Yes, you did do something. So that is a tough job, and I applaud your efforts, because I mean that really is a difficult job, because I'm sure as you are working with them, and they're not perfectly calm in your class either, because they're angry. And I'm sure that a lot of them punch your buttons too. So how do you maintain your own calm when they trigger you?
Well, the thing is, punching buttons usually requires a person to know somebody fairly well, so that they know what it is that bothers the person. I find that in the class, when people, try to get my goat or whatever, I recognize that there's something in them that needs something. And I just turn it around and ask them, what is it that you need in this moment? Because it has nothing to do with me.
Okay. I mean, I think that's the key, because I mean, we all have our triggers. I mean, we all have things that can be said to us that may not have anything to do with what's going on at the moment, but that can trigger emotional response in us. And I think that is the key point that you just made, is to remember that no matter what was said that may have triggered you, this has nothing to do with me. Don't own what it is that they're throwing out there.
Because one of the examples that I give them is, I said, let's say you're talking with somebody, and all of a sudden they say, I think that you are a really awful person, and I especially don't like your green hair. I don't understand why you have green hair. I just think that is the dumbest thing in the world. And I said, if you don't have green hair, you're wondering, well, what's wrong with that person? Why do they think my hair is green? I mean, those are the thoughts going on in your head, and you don't buy into it. You have to participate. Don't let somebody control you. If you let somebody control you, if you let their words affect you.
Yes. And that's a good point. I mean, that is key, because regardless of what they are saying, these are just words. And I mean, I actually, not too long back, months back now, actually had that experience where I was in a discussion with someone, and they wanted to hurt me. And so they were throwing all of these words out, and these things that were hurtful and could have been hurtful, mainly because they weren't true. But then there came the point, and I initially started to act. They were punching my buttons. They were starting to trigger me. And then, they turned around, and when I started to react, they said, see how you are? You're crazy. And that was like a dash of ice water in my face. All of a sudden, I was like, you're right. I am crazy if I'm responding to this, because this is a crazy conversation that has nothing to do with me, because none of this is true. So at that point, I made the decision, I'm going to shut this down. These are just words. I don't have to participate in this. These words can't hurt me. And I mean, it's what we tell our children. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt you. They are words, and the emotional attachment that we put onto them, we make the decision what that weight is. And they're just words. Until we attach an emotional weight to them, they have no meaning, And I mean, we see it in the language now. The young people are using words that were perceived as curse words when we were younger, and it was like, oh my, you don't say those things. And now they say them as just part of their lingo. And, they're talking with each other and joshing with each other, and all of this language is flying around, and the adults are going, oh my, they're cursing. This is horrible. And the kids are going, what are you talking about? That's just how we talk, because we've assigned different weight to those words. And so in situations of anger, you kind of have to decide whether those words have any real meaning. And a lot of times when people are angry, they are throwing words out there that shouldn't have meaning. You know, they're just things that they're saying to be hurtful because they think that you will put that weight on those words. And you have to disempower that situation by allowing them to just be words and allowing them to just fall.
Mm-hmm.
But doctor, you know, that's the best way to deal with it. But unfortunately, the person that's making those statements probably is going to react worse now that you didn't buy into his or her concept, right? You just kind of like, you know, waved them out. And it's like you just were like, it went right through me, and now they get all escalated because like, how the hell I couldn't get through this person, right? And that's like, you know, now we're actually going three levels up. That's a difficult, you know, scenario. I mean, that is you're doing the right thing, but sometimes some people, they just don't end there. That's when it gets physical and they get like,
and that's when you have to step away. That's when you have to step away and put space in between the two of you. I mean, because by not being triggered by those words, you're attempting to de-escalate. But if that person is in the mode where they want to punch those buttons and they want that fight, a lot of times there's nothing that you can do about that. And that was that situation that Alex was talking about earlier, you know, where that's kind of an abusive situation. That's the bully, and they're not going to de-escalate because they want that fight. So the best thing you can do with that is to remove yourself, if you can.
So Alex, I have one question about the common denominators that you find in most of the students, because there's got to be something that is pretty much kind of unique or at least common across the board that, you know, I mean, there's triggers, there's stuff, but either their upbringing, maybe abuse in the past, maybe something, maybe work stress, maybe psychological, you know, issues. Any one of those, are there any traits or something that is specific that you've come across during your, I guess, tenure as someone who teach, you know, these processes and help people?
Yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I think, it's kind of like my whole, whatever it is that I do. I get the sense that a lot of people didn't have the best upbringing, and through no fault of theirs, you know, I mean, they were born like everybody else and they lived their life. And for whatever reason, maybe somebody didn't read to them, or, you know, they had trouble in school, or, you know, they were the baby of the family, or they were the oldest and they had to take care of all the other kids, you know, just different things happen. And you know, it probably wasn't in the best way to do it, but I always felt like I was going to be a mom to all these people. And without letting them know that I was momming them, I was helping them, you know, to do things like I wanted to make sure that they had experiences that maybe they missed when they were children. Like one of the things I used to do when we would have our letting go class, I wanted to give them a physical experience. And so what I had them do was to write something that they needed to let go of on a piece of paper. And then we stuck it on a helium balloon, and I took them out into the parking lot and we let balloons go. And I told them, watch the balloon, watch it until it disappears. And so they would have that physical memory of whatever it was that they had you know, written on that thing going away. And anytime that it came back to them, that they could then again remember it floating away and see the balloon go away. And so I treated everybody like, you know, they were one of my kids and they had just missed some of this stuff going up. You know, in communication, maybe your family didn't talk right, or maybe, you know, wherever it was you grew up, They didn't talk nicely to you. They talked down to you. They didn't treat you like just a smaller human being. And so my goal was to make each person feel heard, and that they had something valuable to say, that whatever experience they had brought them to today, and that they had their choice as to what they were going to do with that. They could carry it around like a suitcase, or they could acknowledge that it's experience that I had and do something with it. And that was their choice to make.
And I think that is a good point. Again, it comes down to the weighting of things, the weighting of experiences. Technically, there really are no bad experiences. Every experience that we have is something that we can use, and an opportunity for us to learn something and to carry it forward. So although, the situation may have been hellish while you were in it, I think it's important that once you move past it, that you see it as a growth experience, as opposed to carrying it around in the suitcase of bad experiences. So, Alex, is there any, well, you've given us 5 points, but, is there any particular driving point that you would like to leave our audience with as a way to be in their calm and the significance of their calm? And I will take this moment to say that the importance of finding that calm, this is a show about health, and managing your anger is a very important and healthy thing to do, because one of the things that happens with angers is it incites a lot of chemical changes in the body, and all of those chemical changes are toxic changes, and those toxic changes create inflammation, and inflammation creates disease, and disease oftentimes leads to death. So, we want to get rid of those things that incite the inflammation in our body, and being able to manage those things, being able to manage our anger and our inner emotions is really a key to good health. So, is there any one major, if you didn't hear anything else I said tonight, I want you to hear this. What would that takeaway point be?
The takeaway point would be to be present in the moment and not get caught up in all the things going on in your head that are telling you what's happening. To concentrate on your breath and do some sort of breath pattern. I talked about square breathing. I would tell them to research it, do long breathing. You want to breathe, let's see if I can remember right. Breathe out longer than you breathe in, whatever that is. And that will calm you down. If you do it the other way around, that will warm you up and excite you. So that's what you tend to do when you get angry. So you want to breathe out longer than you breathe in. And or you can do triangle breathing or nostril breathing. There's many things you can do. Research it and find out what fits best for you, because that will always center you and calm you, and will also physically change you and reduce all those negative chemicals that are going through your body. That is probably the quickest thing that you can do. You might have to move away from where you are to do that, but I recommend that you do that. You can do that without any kind of equipment. You can do that just about anywhere, and I would highly recommend that.
And that actually triggered a thought in my mind. All of this stuff is kind of programmed into us, in our DNA naturally. in terms of how to manage ourselves. And, what you said about the longer breath in being warming and the longer breath out, cooling and calming. I wonder if that's the reason why we sigh. I mean, because we naturally, particularly when we get upset, we have a tendency to sigh. And, you'll be like, well, okay, what's wrong with you? Because I hear you doing all of this sighing. Is that self-calming behavior?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, there you have it. And, breathing is so important on so many levels, but, clearly breathing is one of those ways that we can help to manage our emotions. And this has been wonderful. You've given us a lot of information, some good tools, and, everybody knows that they do not feel good when they're angry. And we all want to basically feel well, and we all want to be in our happy place. And you've given some very, very nice steps to help people improve their health by taking them to their happier place. So we appreciate you bringing that. And I'm lucky to have my bestie on the show. It takes me to my happy place. So, Hurricane, is there anything you would like to ask or add to this conversation before we wrap it up?
No, just how do we have our audiences reach out to you for your services, and how they can, communicate with you, and where they can find your information?
Say that again.
Where can people go and find your information and reach out to you to use your services and work with you if they need, to be assisted with the anger management piece?
Well, I have to tell you, my website's down at the moment, but they can email me at alexempower44@gmail.com.
Perfect. We will have that on the description of the show so people can actually certainly, reach out, because this is powerful stuff. And, a lot of people are dealing with this. This is not, I think everybody has some sort of a level of anger that we all can control. Sometimes, we all have, so I think, it depends on what degree, but I think sometimes we need someone that's an expert to guide us through this. And I think you are the best for this, and I hope that some people that are listening right now, watching, if they see someone, maybe not themselves, maybe someone else that they can help, this is a good way to actually guide them and send them your way, Alex, and keep up the great work. Because I know you're helping a lot of people, because when you help someone, I guess, to become better, it impacts everybody around them and the society as a whole. So the impact there is just, one at a time. And it's almost like a nice little wave of goodness that's going through. So that's all I have.
Absolutely. And I'd like to say, for everybody out there listening, as Hurricane said, we all are going through it. It doesn't matter how wonderfully, glowingly happy your life is. There is going to be a point when you're angry about something or other, and when life isn't perfect. So an anger management class is something that every single person on the planet can actually benefit from, because the more that we're able to manage our own emotions and the more tools that we have to do that, then the better we'll be at moving through our world smoothly. So there is no shame in your game to reach out and seek counseling, to seek anger management, and just think of them as tools in your chest of behaviors for having a positive, productive life. So I may be a little biased because I work with her regularly, and I have seen the benefits of her work. And I've seen the calm. She's a wonderfully calm lady. And don't let the calm exterior fool you, because a lot of people will look at people like Alex and say, oh yeah, but your world is perfect. But she has been through her trials and tribulations and used her own tools to help to give her that calm. So nobody has a perfect life. And even though you may be going through some difficulties, don't feel like you are the only one or that anything you're going through is insurmountable and can't be helped. Reach out for the resources, and Alex is definitely a wonderful reach. So Alex, again, thank you so much for being with us. We will put all of your information on the website so that people can reach you, and I'll be very happy to hear what you say when we have you back on the show in the future. So thanks for joining us, and to our audience, thank you also for joining us. We hope that our show has been of benefit and that it has educated, informed, and entertained. This is Chatters That Matters. Let's talk about it. We've had our guest, Alex Wright, Commander Maureen Alexander, and I am your show host, Dr. Cheryl Bryant Bruce, MD, the Celebrity Doc, here with my co-host, Hisham Elenmati, Hurricane H. Chatters That Matters. We'll see you next week.
Bye.